If you're a business owner trying to decide when to invest in long term marketing, or if you're a virtual CFO who advises other businesses on these decisions, do not skip this episode. My guest today is Nick Jain, co founder of Eagle Rock CFO Services. Nick trained as a mathematician and physicist, earned his MBA at Harvard, spent a decade in private equity, and has scaled multiple businesses past $100 million. Today, he helps companies in the $5 to $50 million range run leaner using Fortune 500 level financial playbooks. So, some really cool insight here that you can apply to your small business. What makes this conversation powerful is that Nick doesn't just talk about evaluating other businesses. He shares how CFOs should pressure test their own decisions, especially around marketing investments like podcasting, hiring, and when to walk away from an initiative entirely. If you're great at giving clients objective advice, but rarely have a chance to look at your own business with that same third party lens, this episode will challenge you in the best way. Welcome to Podcasting for Financial Professionals. I'm Virginia Elder, founder of Podcast Abundance, where we help you use podcasting to market your business, to increase your authority, to get more eyes on your practice, and to capture leads for your business. If you're an investment advisor, tax strategist, business finance sleuth, or wealth management professional who wants your podcast to actually support growth, not just create content, you're in the right place. I made the podcast conversion blueprint just for you. It walks you through exactly how to turn your listeners into clients using a simple framework you can apply right away. The link is in the show notes. Here we go into today's episode. All right, Nick, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Really excited to be here, Virginia. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So I shared with you that I don't think we've had someone on that deals with as large of companies as you have. So would you give us just a little bit of your background and bring us up to speed on who you serve today?
Perfect. Yeah. So my name's Nick. For the first decade of my career, I worked in private equity and hedge funds as a large cap investor. So at places like Bain Capital, so doing like $1 billion plus private equity and hedge fund deals, and did my MBA at Harvard Business School. And then for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been a turnaround CEO or CFO for private equity backed companies, typically mid-sized companies between, let's say, $10 to $100 million of revenue. So firms have brought me in when a company is struggling and they need someone to really fix it and scale the company and professionalize it. So somebody who institutes systems, analytics, discipline, and takes companies to the next level. I've done that both as a CFO and a CEO. The other kind of fun part of my background, not fun, relevant part of my background is I've got a degree in math and physics, so very, very passionate about all things mathy. And today, as of 6 weeks ago, my business partner, Dan, and I launched Eagle Rock CFO. And what we do is we work with mid-sized businesses, so $5 to $50 million, and try and provide them the same level of analytical insight that an elite tier consulting firm would be, except at a fraction of the cost. And the reason we can do that is we've built a whole bunch of technology that allows us to just dig deeper and at a fraction of the labor effort that a traditional firm would require, and therefore we pass on those savings to our customers.
We have kind of this special honor today of having someone that deals with these larger companies, and we can apply it to our small businesses, because I think most folks listening might be a little bit smaller, but where I'm thinking this connects is for my listeners' clients. So everybody listening, think about the size of your client's business. And that's where I'm thinking Nick can really be a great partner for you. So Nick, when you're brought in to turn around a company, right? You're somebody's struggling and they're like, dear God, help us. What are maybe the top 3 things that you see, or the top 3 things that you look at immediately? Like what could we kind of notice?
Sure. So I think the two or three things that are really important for any business. And again, I'm now running a tiny business that's literally just getting off the ground. We have a couple clients, but we're not six-figure revenues by any means yet, right? And a lot of the same principles actually do translate. So the things that I've used for larger companies do translate to Dan and I running our business now. The first thing is wastage, right? A lot of businesses are wasting money, time, effort on things that are just bad decisions. So like the joke is if you spend $1, you roughly need to get $1.50 in profits out. And if you're not doing that, then something's wrong. And the same applies to human labor. If you're spending an hour of effort doing something, do you get more than an hour and a half of time or time's worth of money back, right? The silly practical example is like, if you earn, let's say, $30 an hour, and walking to the grocery store and back takes an hour, you just spent $30. It actually makes sense to go spend that $10 Uber Eats or fresh delivery fee. And you'd actually make money. So that's number one. Eliminating wastage is really important. In almost every company, large or small, I've observed significant amounts of wastage. And that means you can increase your profits without needing to fire anybody, without needing to restructure stuff. So that's number one. Number two is, how are decisions made? In a lot of organizations, decisions are made based on gut feel or whoever. The term is HIPPO principle, highest paid person in the organization. The CEO, the owner, the loudest, most charismatic person in the room. And turns out there's a lot of research out there that's been known for decades in business theory and academia that's a terrible way to make decisions, right? Loud people are sometimes the smartest people in the room, but they're not always.
I would say most often not. There's somebody quiet in the corner that totally knows the answer. Yeah.
Well, I'm a loud person, so I'd like to think at least some of the time I know the answer.
Okay. We'll give you that because
we're not always the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is data transparency, right? In a lot of organizations, you are kind of making decisions based on what feels right without evidence. And again, data is hard to gather. Like if you're running a small construction business, you may not have all the data of like how much you spent on wood or labor materials, but gathering whatever data you can that requires the minimal amount of effort and then spending a little bit of time thinking, what does this mean? Is going to dramatically improve your outcomes. And I'll give an example from our small business world, right? Dan and I have all these opportunities in front of us for clients or opportunities we can pursue, but we're actually thinking about, okay, we put it all on a spreadsheet that this requires 5 hours of work and it will generate this much money with this probability, a lot of assumptions in there. And that allows us to stack rank which opportunities we pursue in which order. And that's, again, for a tiny business, probably smaller than many of your listeners today.
But I see how we could all apply that directly to our own businesses. So that is really, really helpful. But then you're telling me that you've used very similar thought processes on, $5 million plus businesses, right? So can you tell what is different there?
I think two things. Number one is you have a lot more data available. Or can get access to a lot more data. That's number one. So the decisions become a little bit more complex, a little bit more analytical, a bit more kind of quant heavy. But the second really important thing is in larger businesses, you have to design a system. So you can't just have an analysis that is done by one genius sitting on a computer somewhere. It has to be repeatable next month, next quarter, because this same problem is going to come up over and over and over again. So you need to build a system so that somebody else can do it or you don't have to rebuild it every single time. Whereas I think as a smaller business, often you're not going to run into the same problem so frequently that it makes sense to kind of build the wheel or build the car. Whereas when running larger businesses, you do need to build that system because you're going to encounter the same problem over and over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe this is a dual question, but as we grow our small businesses, none of us are going to hire in a full-time CFO. So we're going to need a virtual fractional CFO at some point. But then we might also be looking at our clients' businesses. If I'm managing millions of dollars for Joe and he is the owner of this other business, maybe he needs a fractional CFO at some point. So how do we know when that is, either for our business, or how do we know when to make that recommendation for them?
Sure. So I think for very, very small businesses, you can use ChatGPT or Gemini, and it will actually give you pretty good advice for basic questions, right? So I actually recommend anyone who doesn't have a very strong, whether you call it a CFO, FP, financial planning and analytics person, data scientist. If you don't have that that type of role because you can't afford it or it doesn't make sense for your business, that's okay. Use ChatGPT. Okay, it does, or Gemini, Anthropic, whatever your favorite chat model is. They actually give you pretty good advice. The place where you start needing a fractional CFO, I think one of three things has to be true. Number one, the complexity of the business is now greater than kind of how smart the person running the business is. And we all hit that limit, right? Whether that be a $100,000 business or a $1 billion business, every human being has a limit to when the size of their organization, business is more complex than them and needs somebody really smart. So that's situation number one. Situation number two is after about $5 million in revenue, you're going to make money by hiring a CFO, fractional or full time. You basically, he or she will like save you more money or make you more money than you're paying in his or her salary. So it's often a no brainer. That may not be true at $1 million, but at $5 million, I've never seen a business that is not going to make more money the next year as a consequence of having that kind of analytical leader. And I don't mean an accountant specifically. That's table stakes, but the person who can and analyze what all that data and evidence means. And then the third situation is, if you have the kind of impression that your business is not disciplined. So setting aside all the great analyses that a good analytic person can do, one good thing that like CFOs or CEOs really do well is they bring discipline to an organization. You need someone who's a little bit of a taskmaster and holding everyone, including the CEO, accountable. Someone to be the bad guy, right? The bad cop. And that actually adds a lot of value to organizations.
Okay. I like that. And I'm thinking that, like you said, the 5 million plus business hiring a CFO, and they're going to make more money on that decision purely just because of this like extra third party that their sole purpose is to evaluate, find waste, find opportunities to optimize, right? And it's just that value of the third party in any situation. So in the podcasting space, a lot of times I'm playing that role as far as like the strategist when I come in and look at an existing show, like, okay, why don't you feel like you're getting traction in your business for this show? So that third party can be very valuable in a lot of situations. So going back to your prior role, that company had a podcast. Would you be able to share a little bit about maybe their strategy with the podcast or kind of what it looked like? Just give us an idea of like the business size with podcast style.
So the prior company I was leading was called IdeaScale. It was a mid-sized software company, about 100 employees across 7 countries making innovation software. You can think of it as like a brainstorming software for large organizations. And we kind of had 3 different podcasting efforts. Number one, our senior employees would show up on other people's podcasts, kind of like we're doing today. Or kind of like I'm doing today. Number 2 is we hosted monthly or quarterly webinars with very, very senior people from our clients, or just, it doesn't have to be from our clients, but very senior people who are relevant. And then number 3 is we hosted our own podcast where I was attempting to be, a podcast host, and I would host mid-level people from a variety of our clients and customers' organizations. Those 3 different things had different goals. Us showing up on other people's podcasts was obviously to increase our reach. The webinars were to give really, really high value added exposure to very, very senior people. So for example, we had a gentleman who wrote the ISO standard for the type of technology we were working on. He wasn't a customer, we weren't paying him anything, but he got to speak to people who were really interested in the topic. And he didn't promote our product at all. It was just like truly knowledge creating as a kind of podcast webinar, whatever you want to call it. And the third one was an opportunity. It was us hosting a podcast, and the goal of that primarily was to deepen our relationships with customers, to make them feel heard, and to let them talk about some of the cool successes they'd had with or without our technology. By the way, like we got to hear the chief of innovation for Burlington, Vermont, talk about some of the great innovation programs that his city was running, and he was not affiliated with us in any way.
Very cool. Yeah, there's so many opportunities how we can use podcasting for the business. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the straight client acquisition type mindset. And I think we tend to get stuck there, right? Like we tend to see, the interview style and, here, download my $27 ebook and just kind of get stuck in that model and think that that's what we have to do. But I love how you broke that down into 3 ways that your company was using podcasting. And I know that you will have another podcast in the future. So that we'll look forward to that later. Meanwhile, as someone's thinking about growing their business and launching a podcast, would you be able to give us some insight as to how a CFO would look at podcast expenses, right? For production, equipment, the team members sitting on the podcast for an hour at a time. How would you look at the podcast, whether as a marketing expense, which is typically where I think it sits, but you tell me.
So, putting on my CFO hat for a second, nothing is actually an expense is a funny philosophy. Everything is an investment. When you're hiring somebody, whether that be a person in HR, whether that be a CFO, whether that be a junior marketing person, you're making an investment in the company. And in theory, that person is going to generate more value. That person, that technology, that software, that piece of wood you bought for your warehouse is an investment, not an expense. And the question is, again, if I spend $100 on wood, is it going to make me $150 in profit back? If I hire a HR person for $60,000, is he or she going to save me $90,000 somewhere else, right? By making my employees more productive when they ramp on, by hiring people faster, by avoiding lawsuits, whatever it is.
Quick question. Is your podcast actually bringing in clients or just downloads? Those are two very different things. If you want your podcast to generate leads for your business, you need more than great content. You need a conversion strategy, which is exactly why I made the podcast conversion blueprint. With this free download, you learn how to structure your episodes, what to say in your call to action, and how to move listeners into your pipeline for your business. If you want to start growing your business with podcasting, grab the link in the show notes and download the podcast conversion blueprint today.
So going back to podcasting is an investment in your business. And that investment, whether it be client acquisition, client retention, whatever your primary, I guess it's primarily going to be customer focused in some way, either retention or acquisition. You have to think about, okay, I'm investing this amount of money, and we'll come back to that in a second. It's an investment. What sort of returns do I need to get from that investment? So how many customers do I need to acquire, or how many customers will I be able to retain that I wouldn't if I didn't have this podcast? So that's kind of the benefit side. And on the cost side, you have to think about, okay, here's the elements, and you kind of laid them out. What are the production costs? What are the distribution costs, the hosting costs, any podcasting software? Like we're using Riverside today, but there's a couple other podcasting platforms, recording platforms out there. And then obviously the people's time, but not just the person's time, the host time for showing up, but also kind of the prep time that goes into before in terms of organizing guests, scheduling them, any ex-post marketing. You have to add all that up, and that adds up to a lot of time and effort. And I'm just going to make up, a number, let's say between the people's time, between the software, etc., and episode costs, let's say $1,000 or $1,500 to produce. Swag estimate. My swag estimate is actually about $1,000. All in it. And most of that is the people's time that went into kind of the before, during, and after element. So the question becomes, okay, I just spent $1,000 investing behind one single podcast episode. Is it going to generate $1,500, give or take, in profit back to me? That's the math. That's the math a good CFO would do, because you're making an investment for a return. No different than like a stock market investment.
Okay. I think that's where a lot of people get hung up, especially starting out, is making those initial investments, thinking like, ooh, this is expensive. This is a lot. And they are, for better or for worse, looking for that immediate return, which I think you might know, podcasting does not necessarily pay you in the first 10 episodes, maybe in the first 20, maybe in the first year. I view this as a much longer term investment. And we've had several conversations about it being just a small fraction of the marketing picture. Like it might take your potential customer multiple steps of seeing an ad, seeing a webinar, listening to your podcast, various layers of your marketing over, 3 months, 6 months, whatever the thing is. And of course, marketing's intention is to shorten that client acquisition cycle. But but we can't get kind of stuck on just one piece of the marketing and expecting that immediate return. So give me the CFO perspective on that.
Okay, that's a hard question. So
It
it's
is.
it's a
And I
hard
think
question
that's why
because
it's
you're asking a
important.
very complex question. So I'll try and answer with kind
Yeah.
of three or four things. Number one, marketing is hard and complex. That's why it is a profession, right? It is not just, I'm okay at marketing. Could I step into a CMO seat? No, probably not. Marketing is hard because you do have to think about, as you said, all those multiple touch points. You have to analyze how each of them contribute, and that's called a marketing attribution model. There's an entire theory and math that goes into that. I won't get into that. Long story short, the math behind marketing attribution is very hard and requires a lot of data. Number two is marketing in general, not just podcasting, and you alluded to this, is typically a long-term investment, right? If you want sales now, you should go do selling, right? Call up people and say, buy my burger, buy my construction service, buy my, accounting service, whatever. That's the shortest and most attributable way to drive revenue. Marketing tends to be a longer term effort, much slower burn, but much more beneficial long term. But it's probably not going to generate any revenue for you in the next year, except maybe performance marketing, which is like paying for ads on Google, Amazon, etc. And even that, there's a debate on whether it's driving sales any more so than you just having the cheapest price for your product. So that's number two, right? Marketing is just a long-term investment, and podcasting is part of that long-term investment. And it makes sense for some businesses, marketing, and some businesses it doesn't, right? Like, I own a small real estate rental business. The contractor I use, I think he spends $0 on marketing. He's got a posting on Yelp. That's how I found him, right? It didn't cost him a penny. So no marketing. And then the third thing is, again, you have to go back and put on your discipline. Is this worth it for my business? Put on your disciplinarian hat, right? And for every business, when you allocate those expenses, you're really making investments and figure out if marketing is a good investment for your business. And for some it is, and for some it isn't. For McDonald's, it's probably a very good investment. For, I don't know, Quest protein bars, probably less so.
Aha. Okay. So, could you give us some insight as to how to know how much marketing is a good investment? I mean, again, that's probably a tough question, but these are
Well, yeah,
the small business, confusion points for people.
the first thing, look, you're asking a hard question that is case specific and does require real analysis. So I can't give a one size all fits answer here, but I'll try and give kind of two tactical answers that are useful. Number one, go ask ChatGPT, like describe your business, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever your favorite tool, a chatbot is, and say like, here's my business. I run a $300,000 revenue CPA business or burger business or whatever. Does marketing make sense for me? If so, how much time and effort should I spend on it, and through what channels? And it'll give you a decent answer. Second, if your business starts becoming more complex, you should hire either a CFO or an analytically oriented CMO to come up with a more quantitative answer for your business. And he or she will go through the 10 different channels and say, look, this channel is going to cost you $1,000 and only generate $800 in profit a year from now. This is a bad idea. Don't do that. But that is a skill set, and that will, that will require you to hire someone or build that skill set yourself. But if you want kind of the level one answer, the chatbots are actually pretty good at giving you reasonably good answers.
Yeah. At least something you could get started on and start to implement and then be like, oh, like, I don't like this. I do like that, and make a few decisions there. So I know I'm asking very complicated, like you said, questions that require analysis. But this is why so many small business owners struggle with these decisions, because we tend to think that we should know the answer and that we should somehow have a clue as to, whether Facebook ads are going to work or whether I should launch a podcast or whatever. And so just to kind of like take the pressure off of listeners, it does actually help for you to say, well, yeah, like this requires in-depth, analysis. There's this wild formula back here. I'm not going to get into it. It kind of takes the pressure off and go, okay, well, that's why I don't know. So it's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll drop one very, very nerdy comment. So marketing attribution, there's a crazy formula behind it, but what is even crazier is the formula is known to be unsolvable. So what most marketers use is this formula, But for those who have a formal mathematical training, they learn somewhere along the way that is an unsolvable problem. Meaning, like, no matter how much math and data and IQ points you throw at it, you can't actually solve it. So it's actually a wasted effort in trying to do marketing attribution. I once
Okay.
explained this to someone who had a marketing degree, and she was much, much better at marketing than me. But I explained from the mathematician's point of view, because that's my background. I'm like, you're spending a bunch of time that will, make you feel smart and make you look smart in front of your boss, and there's some benefits for that, but it actually yields zero value. You cannot solve this problem that is known and has been known for like 40 years.
That is awesome. And that takes even more pressure off.
Well, no, your boss still wants you to come up with an answer, even if the answer is like BS. Unfortunately, that's the way the world works, right? Sometimes looking good to your boss is more valuable than actually, having a useful answer.
Yeah. So let me ask you, is there or what is the point to where you would stop marketing in a certain channel or way? Like, would you give it 6 months, a year, your evaluate, like, how do we know when to drop something that is not working? A lot of times, maybe this is wrong, but I'm going off of like, I hate doing this thing and I'm not seeing the results that I want. So, bye. Is that the best way for a small business, or how should we really be looking at this?
I hate cold calling, but it works, right? It just requires you to make roughly, in my business, it depends on business, but in my business, about 300 cold calls leads to one client, right?
Steep
I
fraction
don't
there.
like doing it, but it's part of my. So look, there's two things. Going back to what you said, marketing is a slow burn, long play game. Almost no marketing other than like paid advertising, on digital paid advertising for small ticket items, so like $5, $10, $20 type items. If you're selling $1,000 service and you're doing marketing for it, you're not going to see any results for as much as a year. So running a blog and SEO, podcasting, almost any forms of organic marketing are not going to yield anything for like a year. So you basically can't give up for a year. The more practical answer is, for a lot of businesses, marketing just doesn't make sense because they need revenue now, and they don't either have the staying power or kind of the discipline to hang on and continue doing it for a year, because it's a very, very slow, painful grind. And if it doesn't make sense for your business, as crazy as it sounds, don't do marketing. Like, if you need sales today, go sell, don't do marketing, right? It's do what you need to do to stay in the game, which often for many, many small businesses, they're not able to make a long-term investment, right? Not all of us is Elon Musk and can start a company that won't make money for 25 years. Most of us need to pay rent and have kids and dogs and cats and like yards to clean.
So that brings up the kind of theory that I have that so much of running a small business is really just how long can you play this game? Because, 5 years in, okay, sure, you've outlived all the other small businesses that failed year 1, year 2, year 3, whatever. But maybe you can share, since you've been behind the scenes of some of these much larger businesses. I mean, is that really true? Like, the longer you're in, the more likely you are to hit those big numbers? Or how old are some of those big companies?
Some companies, can hit $10 million in revenue in nowadays, especially with AI technologies, in like 2 or 3 years. So, okay, so we're going to have A implies B, but B does not imply A, back to like high school logic, if you remember. Almost all large companies have been around for a while, but not all companies that have been around for a while are large. And the reason is you basically need 3 things to become large. Number 1 is you need a good product or service, something somebody wants to buy. Number 2, you need systems that allow you to scale. You could have the greatest, burger ever, but if you don't have a supply chain, you're not going to be, and a capital allocation model, you're not going to be able to stand up 1,000 restaurants, right? Like, there's this restaurant across the street. I love it. They have 5 or 6 locations. They're doing, very profitable. 2 brothers own it. But they're never going to be able to run 1,000 stores because they have not, it's 2 guys and their wives working really, really hard to run these businesses. The business is basically these 4 people and all their employees, but it can't exist beyond those 4 people. So you need basically people and systems that allow you to scale. And number three, you need a big enough market, right? There's only so many there's only so many people who want to buy $1 million diamonds, right? You can't run a $1 billion business on $1 million diamonds because there's not 1,000 people who want to buy $1 million diamonds, or 10,000 or whatever that number is. So those are the three things. Again, to reiterate, you need a product or service that is valuable to someone, whether that be a burger, CPA, consulting, marketing, whatever. Number two, you need systems and people that scale, right? Not people who basically, end up limiting the organization to a certain scale and trap you at kind of that smaller stage. And number three, you need a market where there's enough people or companies who want to buy whatever you're selling. There's a lot of great profitable markets out there that are very, very tiny.
Okay. You talked about people and systems that scale. Can you help us look into like the typical financial service-based business, maybe like the one that you're building, and talk about what are some things to look at and look into? Okay, like I've got the service, let's just say I'm a financial advisor, people and systems, and then the market is obviously big enough here in the US. So what should we be looking for in that like systems and people piece?
So on the systems and people piece, especially amongst kind of the leadership, I think you need two or three characteristics. Number one, you need a vision of what you're trying to build, right? Are you trying to build a profitable lifestyle business? There's lots of people who run businesses that make $1 million or $2 million bucks a year, and they're happy with that, right? But do you want a vision and aspiration to run $1 billion business? Because if you don't, that's okay too. There's lots of rich people who run small businesses. So that's number one. You need a vision or aspiration, ambition, whatever buzzword you want to use. Number two is, are they building the technologies and processes to make a repeatable way, right? Again, let's use McDonald's as an example, right? You go to any McDonald's in the country, they're basically making a burger the same way, any in the world, not just in the country, because they have a process to make a burger. Each burger is not an artisanal burger that is made differently by Johnny versus Jane, right? It's a factory process. So you need a process for creating your product, right? So in financial services, for example, you can't have Adam doing his analysis one way and Jennifer doing her analysis a different way. They need to be doing the same analysis, and you kind of need to run it like a factory. And that includes at the leadership level, right? Like, what is the leader, what are the leaders doing every morning? And number three, do you have the technologies? Because people often, what technology does really effectively is two things. Number one, it scales people. So that smart person can act as 20 people instead of as one person. And number two, it allows you to share information in a way that like you can't if it's just trapped in your head or on a piece of paper. And usually if you have these three characteristics, kind of vision, process, and then technology, you're probably set up to scale conditional on those other two bigger characteristics that I talked about.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you so, so much. Okay, so you've mentioned AI, just use ChatGPT if you have like a small business and you just got some basic financial questions. Tell me more. How can we use AI in these small businesses or even edging up to like the medium size?
Sure. So I think there's 4 levels of AI use.
Okay.
There's a couple different framework out there. Level 0 is just you're using it like search, right? Tell me where the nearest McDonald's is. Okay, I don't know why I keep talking about McDonald's. Wendy's. I'm a McDonald's.
You're hungry today.
So level 0, and that's what most people are using these kind of ChatGPT for. Just tell me some information, like how heavy should a 1-year-old child be, right? Like how do I change my hair to blonde, right? So that's level 0, and it's kind of what most, like 90% of users are doing. Level 1 is then is asking it to help you think. So like, help me think through this problem. Hey, I have a problem with a relationship, or I have a business problem I'm interested in. So you're not just asking for information, you're asking it to be a sparring or thought partner. Level 3 is asking it to do real work for you. And that's where you get into kind of coding, things like coding, co-pilots and coding agent tools that will build a website or build an application for you. And then level 4 is where you have an autonomous agent that acts without you interacting at all. Okay, and that's obviously where large corporations are using. I think a lot of value, as you kind of climb up that tier from level 0 to level 3, you get a lot of value. And I think a lot of small businesses can get value just by moving from level 0 to 1, where you actually think of this not just as a information retrieval tool, but as a thought partner. Like this is your fractional CFO or CMO or whatever. I'm not trying to disintermediate myself out of business, but it's actually pretty good at giving you that kind of a bit, giving you, supplementing your expertise in areas where you don't have expertise, right? As a small business owner, you're wearing many, many hats. ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these tools can help you be better than yourself. And then for those who are a little bit more technically inclined, and this is where you start needing a little bit of technical knowledge. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You can vibe code and stuff. But that level 2 is where you're starting to get these tools to get these kind of agents to build tools for you, build customized software. So like, hey, tell your favorite coding agent, build a software that reaches out to my customers every month. That would be great. You can. And the great thing is you can do that super, super easily. And like a couple of hours later, you go get a cup of coffee, and a couple of hours later, that will be built for you, specific for your business, right? And then level 4, you probably don't need to get to because that requires a fair bit of technical complexity, as well as it only makes sense to build those things if you are kind of in hyperscaling mode. But I think almost any small business owner should go get to level 1 and ideally level 2.
Okay. I like that. So personally, I feel like I'm at level 2 or level 1 based on what you said. I have heard so much in the AI space about like you were saying, like level 0, like how to do this or something that I would typically use Google for. Like I'm looking for, the nearest tailor for my pants or something like that. I'm on Google Maps. Like I'm searching locally, and like that's the tool that I would use for that. I would never just literally search something in ChatGPT, but I know people do. And I'll get texts like, oh, well, I searched it in ChatGPT, blah, 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 and this is what happened. I'm like, well, if you use Google, you'd get this. So I find these different usage stages almost hilarious sometimes. But like you said, the level 2, 3, 4, I mean, those kind of blow my mind still. Have you had the chance to see the like level 4 in action? Or maybe it was level 3.
So I'm personally probably a level 3 user where I use AI to build tools for me that make me faster, better, smarter. And I've built one thing myself that is level 4, not good enough to like actually be its own, like, it wouldn't work at an enterprise grade scale. So I've built one level 4 tool myself, and it was basically an agent that would go and read Reddit and respond to a bunch of stuff, pretending to be me. So I just let it run. I never had to do anything. It just ran over and over, constantly. It was like a mini me running around. I personally have not seen enterprise grade kind of level 3 agents yet. They exist. I just mean I haven't had personal opportunity to interact with them quite yet.
I'm thinking that piece of it sounds really interesting to most folks because I know that just the outreach component or answering questions off of it used to be called HARO, help a reporter out. A lot of financial professionals get exposure that way. It's called something else now. But that cycle of needing to answer questions or be visible on certain platforms is kind of a beating. Like you're just like, okay, well, if I spend all day doing this, then I'm not making sales calls and I'm not, doing the client work and I'm not interacting with my team. And so we're always trying to juggle those things. So I'm thinking that sounds really interesting. Anything cool otherwise about AI that you want to share? I mean, I know it's like all in the podcast space. There's coding potential there. There's so much that we could do, but what's actually applicable to a small business?
So I think that level 2 is very accessible. These coding agents, you don't need to be a software engineer. And go pay, what is it? I use Claude Code, for example, right? The cheapest subscription there is $20 a month. And the question you should ask yourself is, let's imagine you value your time at $50 an hour. That means this Claude Code needs to save you 24 minutes of time a month to be worth it. And the answer is absolutely yes, because, for example, I would strongly recommend everyone get Claude Code or a competitor. I forget what ChatGPT's one is called, but Codex, I think, because you don't need to be an engineer. You can literally say, build a tool that does this. This bothers me, and I hate doing it. So I hate, preparing my calendar, or I hate a friend has the silliest use. He loves cooking but hates thinking about what to cook. So he has a coding. He used one of these coding tools to build an automated menu generator for him. So it just plans out what he needs to cook for his family every single day, right? And it's literally that's never going to be a piece of software that he can sell to anybody to solve a very specific problem that he likes to cook, and hates thinking about what to cook. So, like, I highly recommend really any small business owner to go invest in one of these tools and ask it to build something that bothers you, either in your personal or professional life, because you will get help. These tools will solve weirdly specific problems to your life. And whether that be your personal or professional life, that will free up time, mental capacity, and stress that you can then use other things. And it's absolutely worth $20 a month.
Yeah, that sounds very worth it.
Because again, it only needs to save 24 minutes of stress, anguish, time, whatever, right?
And I'm assuming if you're just typing in, telling it like create this thing that solves this problem, and maybe you connect a couple of your other platforms or whatever to it, and so that it has access, right? I don't think that setup would be very intense.
No, it can do the setup for you, or literally tell you, for example, let's imagine you don't know how to connect it to your email. It'll tell you, hey, I need to connect to your Gmail. You'll be like, well, I don't know how to do that. And it'll tell you, well, do this, then do this, then do this.
Okay, so that
Right?
I don't know how to do that line, I think, is so helpful.
Yeah, say literally, I don't know how to do that, or help me, or tell me. Right? I actually have a meta instruction that says, treat me like an idiot, just tell me step by step on how to do so.
I love that. Okay, because I think that's maybe why people are a little slower to adapt some of the technology, because they're literally like, well, I don't know how to use AI.
The powerful thing of these technologies is not so much that they can do things, but now they can interact with humans at a natural language level. I'll use a silly example. These coding agents can't do anything that you couldn't have done in code 5 years ago or 10 years ago. They're just writing the same code people have been writing for decades. However, what has changed now is you can talk to them in normal English or Japanese or Hindi or Russian, and they will code for you, right? It has made it possible for a human being to interface with technology the way we want to deal with technology, which is natural language, not by writing in code or hexadecimal or binary zeros and ones, right? Because I don't know about you, I don't think it's zeros and ones.
I can't do that. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. I feel like you've provided insight, of course, in the CFO space for small businesses, but also in the podcasting space. And then, of course, in the AI space. Thank you so much, Nick. Before you go, where should people find and follow you, especially if they want to get in touch with you for your CFO services?
Sure. So our website is eaglerockcfo.com. So we offer, by the way, a totally free dashboarding tool on there that any business of any size can go in, just click sign up, and it will literally make all these beautiful graphs for you. We don't charge you anything for that. We give it away because we want it to be like exciting and useful to people. For those who are interested in actually, purchasing our service or becoming clients, there's a book a meeting button on the website. Click that. For those who want to connect with me personally, kind of two ways. Number one, my email is on our website, eaglerockcfo.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Nick M. Jain on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's Jain for folks listening.
Correct. Yes. Good catch.
Thank you so much, Nick. I found so much value in this, and I know listeners will too.
Thank you so much for having me on, Virginia.
Thanks so much for listening to Podcasting for Financial Professionals. If you want your show to do more than just educate, if you want it to generate leads and bring in clients consistently for the long haul, make sure you're using the Podcast Conversion Blueprint. This free download helps you structure your podcast to attract new listeners, refine your messaging to nurture them, and capture those listeners when they're ready as your next best clients. And of course, practicing what I preach when you sign up for your free download of the Podcast Conversion Blueprint, you're going to land on my email list. Hit reply to any newsletter because I'd love to learn about your show or about your ideas for a show. I'll point you toward your next best step, whether that be light support like an audit of your show or becoming a member of the Academy, Or maybe you need full service strategy and accountability, like what I do inside the Podcast Conversion Lab. Thanks again for listening to Podcasting for Financial Professionals. If you enjoyed today's episode, stick around for the next few episodes because each one incrementally helps you improve your podcast.